orange Ferrari. And green flag flies, we're racing. The Acura gets a great start from behind. 3 wide up the inside. Closing in on him here through turn number 2. Big slide on corner entry.
Here's, that's a big aggressive dive up the inside there from the Lamborghini. Some bragging rights here, I think, between the two. Look at that slide up ahead from Simpson. That thing was totally sideways, but he was able to catch it.
Race lead. Fantastic stuff here in the M Cup. Big chop by the 777 car off the nose of that. Saw the corner, didn't have overlap, and went right to the apex. Checkered flag, and Adam Youngblood will win the AM race in the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League and pick up a checkered flag, a wet one here at the Huntsville Range. Jimmy Morgan.
Since it opened in 1968, Sonoma Raceway has challenged many of the world's best road racers. 32 years ago, it hosted the first ever World Challenge event, and this weekend it is the site of round 1 of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS.
A hacking attack on a water treatment plant is raising big questions about the vulnerability.
So if we think about adversaries, we have them in the world.
Soldiers, sailors, airmen and women enlist in the armed forces for many reasons, including a sense of duty, patriotism, the adventure, travel, and adrenaline. When service members are injured or wounded and can no longer perform their military duties, they quickly find themselves removed from their team, no longer serving the purpose for which they trained.
I came back from Afghanistan in 2013, and it was kind of a trial and error of finding out, after the military, what's next in life.
Motorsports offers an opportunity to regain that sense of identity within a safe, fast-paced team environment, providing a renewed sense of purpose. Like in the military, in motorsports the goal is in accomplishing the mission, winning as a team, collectively celebrating the successes and supporting teammates through the losses. Operation Motorsport also offers virtual engagements and recovery opportunities through an iRacing league, engaging beneficiaries in a safe, competitive environment from the comfort and safety of their home. Operation Motorsport believes in the power of team, identity, and purpose.
The second round of the 2021 Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS season, kicked off yesterday afternoon with looming gray clouds and the smell of oncoming rain filling the air. The 90-minute race began in the dry, but as the Texas-sized storm moved closer, rain began to fall, falling so hard the race had to be stopped. Today we'll get a redo and a rerun following the number 63 and number 04 DXDT Racing CrowdStrike AWS Mercedes AMGs will use this second go as a chance to step onto the podium. Welcome everyone to CrowdStrike Racing's coverage of the second round of the 2021 Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS Championship. That's a mouthful. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by CJ Moses this afternoon. We'll have Kevin Boehm here a little bit later. And CJ, this year you've gone from the Honda Civic Type R TCR up into the GT3 class machines that we'll watch race today. You were telling me earlier, pretty big adjustment to make to these GT3 cars.
It's a really big adjustment, going from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive, which obviously has a big impact on how you drive the car. Not only that, but the amount of aero, the power, the technology, quite honestly, the traction control and ABS that these have are intended to be used, and not just to keep you on the track, but to make you faster on the track, and you have to learn to trust that, and I haven't done so yet, but the other biggest thing is the physicality of it. Aero means downforce, which means my neck needs to be stronger to keep my head up between the headrest.
For sure. We're here at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. 3.5 miles, 20 corners. You're watching Jan Halen take a lap. Let's have a look here at the 3.5 mile, 20-turn facility here. CJ, this is a very technical racetrack. It's got 3 very different personalities in each of the sectors. The first takes you up a climb to the top of a 110-foot haul to turn 1, then down through the high-speed S's, which is where that arrow you were talking about plays into factor.
Absolutely. The S's, we try to straighten them out as much as we possibly can. Sometimes get in a little trouble for that, for going off track limits, but nonetheless, make it as straight as you can. But at the same time, you're going pretty fast, 100+ miles an hour, and you have a decreasing radius turn at the end, so you have to kind of slow down a little bit towards the end. But it's the arrow plays and keeps us stuck to the ground.
Then you're going to head over the crest of turns 9 and 10, where we saw a crash earlier this morning in the GT4 Sprintex race. Blind crest there, down to the kink in turn 10, into one of your best passing opportunities, turn 11. And then that run from 11 to 12, that's where the GT3 cars really get to stretch their legs, CJ, well over 160 miles an hour.
Yeah, you dig out of the corner. You want to set that turn 11 up really well so that you get a good launch off of that turn, because the better you get a launch off, the more mile per hour you're going to carry at the end, therefore the faster you're going to be going. And then at the end, really late braking, 125 marker or thereabouts, getting down, throwing the car down into the inside of turn 12, using the bump that's there in order to rotate the car and get back to the throttle.
And then you're going to head into these very tight corners here that I call the stadium section, based off of Hockenheim in Germany. 13, 14, and 15. A lot of over-under moves here. You're trying to kind of get to the exit sooner than everybody else.
Yeah, there's a few different lines through there, and depends on your car as to which one's best, and that's why you get a lot of overtaking happening going down into 15, trying to get around another car before you get to the carousel that follows.
Absolutely, and that carousel you can see just on the right side of that shot there, downhill right-hander. Here's a look at the start from yesterday's race. This was the first round of the weekend. Again, 16 cars, the field count a little bigger than last year, which is great to see here, CJ, but a pretty wild start, 3 wide on the run up the hill towards turn 1.
Yeah, it's crazy going into turn 1. You notice a lot of people are trying to run to the inside and make their way around. The problem is that you don't have enough room for all those cars on the inside, and a lot of times you get a little bit of argy-bargy, as I've heard it's called.
Argy-bargy for sure. We've got Kevin Bohm joining us now, driver of the number 9 Honda Civic Type R TC car. Congratulations, winner times 2 in 2021. Got it done this morning, and convincingly as well. You kind of drove away from the field.
Yeah, I mean, this morning's race was much different than yesterday's by a big margin, but the track was still actually pretty damp, so pretty tricky conditions, and I think we were able to use that to our advantage in the front-wheel drive Honda Civic to kind of stretch out a lead and kind of bring home another win.
So it was a really exciting morning. This morning we're watching some of the highlights from yesterday's race that was cut short by a couple minutes because of the rain that came down. A great battle at the front of the field between the number 6 K-Pax Racing Lamborghini and the M6 GT3 driven by Michael Dinan. They had a very fantastic battle. The Inception Racing number 70 McLaren going for a bit of a loop. So the conditions got more challenging. None of that today though, guys. It's nice and sunny outside. We've got the sun beating down here. It's going to be a great day for racing. 16 cars all going for victory, and someone's got to take that K-Pax 3 car off the top spot.
Yeah, that's right. They've been pretty much dominant all season. Maybe today's different conditions will show a little bit different performance for everybody out there, but only we'll know here shortly.
And you can see there the car's pulling down into pit lane. It's about as wet as I've ever seen a racetrack. That was the end of the afternoon for the GT3 spec machines. We had GT America a little bit later. Or was it GT America before or after the GT World Challenge race yesterday? I think it was
that was after the TC race. So yeah, it was
very last race of the SRO schedule yesterday.
Yes. And it was still really wet out there, CJ. I'm sure you saw.
I saw, but I actually chose not to put the car on the track after watching Kevin's race. They moved our race up rather than having the Porsche race that was supposed to be in between. And it looked to be quite the mess out there, and I think it turned out to be a good decision, given that George and others had some damage. So
yeah, of course, it was a lot of scrapping around. Of course, CrowdStrike and AWS bringing us together today. They share that 360-degree relationship. CrowdStrike runs on the AWS cloud, and AWS uses CrowdStrike to secure its servers. Of course, AWS is the title presenter for the series. CrowdStrike is the official internet and cloud security provider for SRO Americas. CJ, you work at AWS. You're a big part of why this exists. And the thing I was looking at yesterday that I love so much is the AWS race vision, which we've looked at. That is such a cool integration, and we've seen corner speeds not only into the S's but also at the carousel. Tell me how that works and how that plays into the broadcast.
Well, gentlemen, I just
here.
want you to take a look.
Yeah, absolutely. So race vision was one of the things that we want to be able to integrate the AWS technology in order to give our race viewers a better experience. I know when I watch sports like this, I want to be able to have more information, more data, and be able to see what's going on. And with race vision, what we are able to do is take the timing data as well as other data, push it into the cloud, do some munging, if you will, and then present to the viewer all kinds of information that will allow them to enrich their viewing experience so that they can see who's fastest, on the back straightaway. You're talking about GT3 cars, we should see in excess of 160 miles an hour on the back straight. Who's, apex speed, the minimum speed through a corner. Those are all things that, as racers, we really like to see, and we want to share that with all of the viewers, not just the racers themselves.
Right, and I think one of the cool things we saw is as the weather got progressively worse throughout the afternoon in the GT World Challenge America race, we could watch those speeds drop through the S's especially, which was a really interesting thing. Kevin, the S's take a lot of commitment regardless of what car you're in, and as the surface gets slicker, that commitment, you start second-guessing your opportunity to kind of sling through there at full speed.
Well, it's not just second-guessing, but you actually have to modify your line just a little bit because sometimes when it's dry, you can use a lot of the curbing. But as it gets damp, because that curbing is painted, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, the grip starts to go down. And even though COTA has some special paint that has some grit in it to give it some grip, it's still not as grippy as the road. But then on top of that, different parts of the asphalt are going to have different levels of grip as well. So really, as a driver, you're looking for the kind of dullest part of the road. If it's shiny, that means there's standing water, and that's no good for a race car.
Certainly is not, and also I was noticing that water is pooling on the inside edge of the curb right where the pavement meets it, which regardless of how the curb is painted, standing water is water, and it's not going to be great to run over. So cars rolling now as we begin on our pace lap around here. So yesterday it was the 3 K-Pax Racing Lamborghini of Jordan Pepper and Andrea Caldarelli that pretty much dominated the race, but Kevin, yesterday it was pretty violently aggressive between the 3 car and the Michael Dinan-driven machine, the Turner Motorsport 96. They had quite the scrap. You think we're going to see the same thing again?
Yeah, it was clear the kind of race pace was a little bit different than the qualifying pace at the beginning yesterday, and we're starting this race with a little bit better track conditions. I think they're going to have a little bit more grip, so if one of the cars was kind of more optimized for these conditions, then it could be kind of a reversal of sorts.
Love this onboard camera here in the 04 CrowdStrike Racing Mercedes. I think we're starting with the pro driver today, so we've got Colin Brown in the 04 and Ryan DL in the number 63. We'll be following the CrowdStrike Racing AWS Mercedes all day long. And CJ, again, you're driving a car that is prepped very similarly, identically, in fact, in the GT3 category in GT America, which is a new series this year. Tell me a little bit about GT America, what it is, and how it's been your first weekend running this car.
Absolutely. So GT America is the Sprint Series version of GT3 racing, but it also includes GT4 cars and GT2, so you actually have mixed class racing. But GT3 being the outright fastest as far as lap time's concerned within the class. It's been a big step up for me, just from the standpoint of, like I said, going from a TCR car, which is, not as much a raw race car as a GT3 car these days. The aero that it has, and like I said, just trying to keep your head up with that aero, if you're not used to it over the course of a race, can get you. Still a lot to learn, but it's been amazing. The car is just very impressive in everything that it can do. It does things that you wouldn't believe it can. Specifically, if you're going through the carousel at over 100 miles an hour, while you're making a very hard turn, the car just shouldn't be able to do so. But all that air on that big wing in the splitter is keeping the car planted to the ground, allowing you to do that. So I'm looking forward to getting out there later on today. Actually, after this race is over, there's another race, and then I get to go out there to close out the day. So I'm looking forward to that. Definitely much better conditions than yesterday.
Yeah, and certainly this is going to be a great opportunity to look also now and see what you can learn after not having been on the track yesterday and watch and learn alongside us this afternoon. So, and you've driven COTA before. You've been here last year in the TCR, and Kevin, you were here in the TCA car last year. So both you guys have experience at the racetrack. On the first couple laps here, where's the gotcha corner? Where are you going to dive bomb someone and get by them on lap 1 or 2, or I guess pass them without a dive bomb, Kevin, because you're courteous out there on the racetrack, maybe.
Well, I mean, turn 1 is going to be the first place of a lot of suspicion because it's kind of a long straightaway, then a really sharp turn. So everybody has to slow way down and turn opposite direction, and it's really hard to prevent someone from just kind of placing their car in a place that's disadvantageous to you. So that's the first place, and then the S's are going to be the next place where really you have to be kind of prepared with your car. You have to know how much grip you have based on the tire kind of temperature, because as the race the first couple of laps go by, the tires are really going to grip up and you can drive really aggressive through there, but you might not be able to do it that same way right on the first lap. So basically, you don't want to give it away after you get through turn 1 clean.
We've seen passing in turn 1. We've seen passing in turn 11. We've seen passing in 12 and 13 and 15 and 20 and 19. We saw some brave souls try that. There's not a place on this racetrack that you really can't pass, except for maybe the S's and the carousel are the 2 spots, CJ, that I think are pretty tricky.
Yeah, the S is the only way you can do so. Normally on the first lap, you'll see some passing because you're side by side, which isn't a great idea, quite honestly, but you do have the ability, if you're side by side, in order to kind of go over the rumbles or around them in some cases. So that works. Carousel is another one that's actually, you can make the pass, either around the outside or around the inside, depending on the car in front of you that you're trying to get around. It is a maneuver that I prefer not to have to make because one little wrong move by that driver in front of you that you're trying to get by, if they don't know you're there, you'll get punted very quickly. So unless I have to, I try not to do that. Coming out of the carousel, though, going into 19, as you enter on the inside, if you can make your car stick through 19 really well on the rumbles itself, and you can get a nice run around and sneak your way, your nose forward, you can actually make that pass through 19. And normally the other driver will be able to go around the outside of you while still easily on the track.
So the field now working their way down towards turn number 11, one of those great passing zones. You can see there's a dark stripe of rubber on entry here right before. There's also the shadow, but I think looking beyond that to the rubber line here. Here's Amanda
the number
on pit
4
lane.
of George Kurtz and Colin Brown finished in the 9th position yesterday. They kick off today in the 4th spot. What will your focus be here today, George?
Well, I think it's just about getting clean laps. Colin always does a great job, and we had a potentially really good finish yesterday. We made the wrong call on the tires, and we had to come back in. But today's a new day. The sun's out, and just put our heads down and do what we normally do.
Good luck.
Just having a discussion here in the booth that we don't get the calls for the pit reporters, and I think I just had a light bulb moment of how I can solve that problem in the future. So coming back to Road America in a couple months, we'll have that all sorted out. So cars now rolling into turn 12 and 13, and I was talking about the braking into turn 11. These cars are equipped with traction control and anti-lock brakes, and CJ, you were saying that with the traction control in these cars, you have to just be able to trust it and just go flat foot and mat the throttle on corner exit. Is it the same thing with the brakes? Just push the pedal down to the floor, or are you still trying to threshold brake it and try not to lock those front tires up?
No, so it also has a pretty advanced ABS, but there is still technique. It's not just a digital switch to hit the brakes. There's definitely still things that you do there, but you can use and should use the ABS on them. There's the switches for both, and you have I think it's 10 settings for each, and it depends on the level of traction that's there, and there's a lot of different adjustments, so we'll adjust based upon that and use it.
So cars doubled up now 8 rows deep for the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Race 2 of round 2 from COTA in Austin, Texas. We'll be going green, not at this line, but the one farther down this front straightaway. That line they just crossed is the control line, which is where we'll pick up the finish later today, 90 minutes from now. Starter has the green flag in hand. Green flag flies. We're racing in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. How about 4 wide on the front stretch? That's Michael Cooper on the far left as we head up the hill towards turn 1. And right now it's the number 33 Windward car that pulls out front, a little bit wide through turn 1 as everybody tries to find room to race there, Kevin.
Yeah, turn 1 is really tough because everybody has to slow down so much, and you see all the cars kind of go 3 and 4 wide to try to get through there, even in the S's here. So really sketchy moments through there as everybody goes.
Whoa,
Big jumps. Wow.
Four-wheel jump for Colin Brown after getting tangled up there with one of the Lamborghinis. That was a wild moment there, CJ. You want to try that one later?
Oh, heck no. That's something you try to avoid, and when we were talking about earlier, it's not a great idea to try to go multi-wide through here, and you just saw why.
That was a big bunny hop. 4 tires off the ground for a moment for Colin Brown, and he stayed in it. He's kept his foot on the throttle. He's going for a pass now towards turn number 11. He's crazy.
That's Colin. I just hope that we don't see smoke from that car in the near future, because they are known to bottom out and have oiling issues thereafter. But it looks clean to me, so Colin made it work.
Whew. All right, first half a lap is complete. Now they get to breathe for a second. The motor now stretching over 160 miles an hour for the lead, though. Here comes that Porsche 911 GT3R to the outside on the brakes and into turn number 12. Good passing zone, but the Porsche couldn't quite make that pass complete. Now he's going to try for 13 down the inside there, Kevin. That's a move we've been seeing all weekend long. People going out at 12 into 13.
Yeah, that's a really good place to pass. I was able to do that earlier in the TC race as well. There's kind of a lot of grip all the way around these turns because it's so slow. You can sort of drive around anywhere as long as you have trust with the other driver to kind of give you room.
That was Jan Halen on the attack right now in the blue 911 RSR. There is Michael Cooper being chased by a handful of Lamborghinis. So there's an Aston in there as well. That is the Ian Lacey racing car. And whoop, down the inside goes the 88. These cars had a bit of a fight yesterday. They're going to resume this afternoon. 3 wide, how about 3 wide towards 20? That's a tight move as well. They're getting real racy here.
That's really tough to pull off. Again, you have to have someone kind of give you some room. So that's why the car on the outside kind of backed up and let it go too wide.
And through, that's Robbie Foley in the 96 car in the BMW. And he will pass driver number 88. That is Madison Snow. They were going to try, and there's that number. Whoa, that's dicey there. Is that the 3 car? Yes, Andrea Caldarelli in the 3. His way back through the field.
Yeah, I think these guys are trying to set a record for how many turns they can go 3 wide or on the same lap.
You're making me nervous. We got an hour and 27 minutes to go, and it's not a minute and 27 seconds left to go. And still door-to-door for a moment. Robbie Foley has made this M6 very wide. This is an older generation GT3 car. One of the older cars in the field, and almost had the door rubbed off there by one of the Lamborghinis. And there's a whole bunch of those Lamborghini Huracans out there, aren't there? None last year. We got 6 or 7 of them this time around.
Whoa! Whoa! Yeah, went for the over-under move there, and found out there was another car over there.
Yeah, that's the Ian Lacey Racing Aston. Big slide there. That's Drew Stavely in the Aston Martin Vantage GT3 for the race lead. Jan Halen on Ellis. Swap over, change positions into the braking zone for turn number 12, and Ellis stays out front. This is a great battle here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's see if he can hold it through turn 13 here. It's definitely trying to do the crossover, but it's really tough to do that. I think he protected for it pretty well.
Look who's coming. Razzle Dazzle from 3rd place. And closing up on the Porsche 911 RSR, or excuse me, GT3R. The RSR is the GT Endurance variant of the 911. And it's going to be a 3-horse race for the lead here, CJ.
Yeah, Ryan, or otherwise known as Razzle Dazzle, was enjoying seeing those two battle it out in front of him. Gave him a chance to regroup and catch up. Yeah, I think the DXDT Mercedes have good pace, and I think we'll see them moving forward as you see Colin Brown is working his way back up there as well.
Yeah, actually there's really 6 cars on top of each other here as we come to conclude, I believe, the 3rd or 4th lap at this point. You mentioned the Ryan DL machine moving forward. As we're on board now with the 04 Colin Brown up the hill. Love this onboard shot. Reminds me so much of Assetto Corsa Competizione and the over-the-shoulder shot we have in the simulator. Of course, CrowdStrike has a virtual racing league for CrowdStrike friends and family, AWS employees and family as well. And that new season will begin shortly and will also be broadcasted on the CrowdStrike Racing channel. Very bumpy here through the S's, guys.
Yeah, that's right, especially in these GT3 machines with the kind of stiff springs to kind of support the car with all the aerodynamic forces that are on it. It's I can't imagine how violent it is, but it looks definitely pretty tough to go through there from that camera shot.
It's very violent. I unfortunately was testing here earlier this year in the GT3 car after having broke a couple ribs a few weeks earlier. And after I got out of the car that day, I basically poured out of the car because I was in so much pain. It's pretty violent, the car, but quite honestly, they're designed for it and able to do it.
Whoa, that's using up every bit of the racetrack plus a couple feet. That's the red verge over there. That's not really technically a racetrack, and it's getting real racy. Door slam here between the two leaders as they head down the backstretch once, twice, 3 times. Banging doors, trading paint. GT Racing at COTA.
Yeah, if I'm Ryan in this place, I'd actually be waiting for those two to take each other out and then slide on through to the lead.
Well, it's going to happen sooner than later at the rate they're going. Already no love lost between those two. Halen and Ellis out front. There's DL in the silver and red liveried CrowdStrike Racing AWS DXCT Racing Mercedes. And just behind is Altoe in the white Lamborghini.
Yeah, I don't think Ryan can hang out too long because that Lamborghini looks pretty racy.
As much as I'm sure he'd like to sit back and wait for those two to tangle, I think he's going to have to be part of it here soon.
Yeah, and I don't think there's much weight in Ryan anyway. I think he's wheeling it to the best of its ability, and
as you guys can see, Jordan Pepper is looking at this monitor. He was talking to his team engineer as we arrived and walked away shaking his head. What was the reaction for Jordan?
To be honest, I don't know what's going on there. A lot of the guys there in the midfield battle, they're racing like it's the last lap of the race on the first lap, which makes no sense to me. And it seems like they just totally disrespecting track limits, overtaking off the track, which is a bit painful. And for some reason, we're struggling in a straight line. So Andrea makes an amazing pass, and then we get to the long straight, and he gets passed by 5 guys. So we got to see what the issue is, but we still got, I think, an hour, 20 minutes to go, so it's early days still, so let's see.
Well, certainly there's some hard feelings already, not even on the racetrack, but in the paddock. Kevin, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm sure he's probably referring a little bit to the start where kind of you're seeing those 2 and 3 wide situations on track, and sometimes as a driver you kind of choose to kind of abuse, I don't want to say abuse the track limits, but use the paved runoff kind of to be safe and minimize some car contact. So whenever you're on the beneficial side of that, then it's always a good thing that they're there, but whenever you're getting taken advantage of because someone's using it, then I think that's why Halen was a little bit ruffled up there.
Yeah, we actually have the race controls warned the 33 car of Ellis for blocking, and I think that was as a result of the last time they came down the back straightaway, moving them all the way over there.
Yeah, that's you know, in some other motorsport, that's a self-policing policy, and they won't necessarily back out in something like NASCAR. Thankfully, here, Jan Halen was able to get out of that situation. But you're doing a $150 down the back straightaway, and getting run off into the verge is not super fun, I'm sure, Kevin.
That's right, and kind of whenever you're racing, especially at these speeds, your competition needs to be somewhat predictable, and the more kind of chaotic and random they're being, it starts to get pretty dangerous. So I think that's one reason why kind of that warning was issued, because the unpredictability and even trying to force someone off track is definitely not, from a safety standpoint, a good choice.
Ryan DL pressuring now the number 20 of Jan Halen. This is for 2nd overall, and again, we've got a couple different classifications, which we'll go over a little bit later. But for now, focusing on the overall lead, we've got 2 DXCT racing cars split up the middle by the white Lamborghini that's between them. And only 10 minutes into this race, and we still have not had any separation here at the front of the field here, CJ. It's all out right now.
It's all out, and it's nice to see the different makes of cars that are battling it out. You know, obviously we like the Mercedes that we see there, but also seeing Porsche as well as the Lamborghini.
Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Fanatic, AWS, and CrowdStrike.
Well, we're not on break. We're just waiting for it to come back. There it goes. So still watching the lead, and it's, again, it's the number 33 that's been leading from the drop of the green flag, the Windward Racing car, Philip Ellis behind the wheel. So the Windward Racing car is a silver-classed car, which puts it in the Pro lineup, CJ. So explain to me the differences between the Pro, the Pro-Am, and potentially the Am lineups that we have in the field.
Yeah, essentially comes down to that you have different levels of driver, or different rankings of driver, and once you become a silver, gold, or higher driver, you're considered a pro. You have bronze drivers like myself or George Kurtz or David Askew that are amateurs. This is what we do for a living, and we're not rated to be able to compete, as a silver, gold, platinum driver, and we've, essentially that allows you to have on track 2 pro drivers going to run in a car, and therefore it'll be a pro effort, and that's what you see. Then you can also have Pro-Am, which will give you the, obviously in the case of Colin Brown, he's a pro, and George is an amateur. The possibility exists for there to be a, 2 amateurs that are driving in a car as well. So you have those 3 different classifications that kind of break out.
So we can see here limiting the P1TS software just to show the Pro-Am category, which is the vast majority of the cars here in the field. Jan Halen, Ryan DL, Altoid Brown, and Michael Cooper, the top 5. And of the top 5, 3 of those are DXDT racing cars. That's a pretty good number there, CJ, in the early going.
Yeah, I'd like, we always like to see them in the top 5. The top 3 would even be better. So that's what we're shooting for today.
So Ryan DL sitting on podium in both the Pro-Am and in the overall line. If we uncheck those other ones, you can see Philip Ellis again in a pro lineup. So competing in the overall lineup, but also mostly racing Corey Lewis in the 6 car, the 96 of Robbie Foley, and Andrea Colorelli in the number 3. So just a good look there. Big slide by the 33 as he comes up over the crest of turn 9. And let me tell you what, Jan Halen is tracking him back down again. We're far from over here at the front of the field.
Yeah, that's right. I think he may have held back just a little bit, maybe to even cool off the tires a little bit to have another run at trying to get ahead. It seems like he has a little bit more pace, but I think he's going to need to get by to really show that.
2 of us leaned forward in our seats there. We saw some debris, more debris flying out towards the exit of turn number 11. Looked like some sort of body work.
Yeah, that's going through there. I have a feeling maybe the undercarriage or the under panels for one of the cars going across there got broken apart, and as they were going through, they were making big pieces into little pieces.
That could be. Here's Halen again, trying the outside over-under here through turn 13. Ellis is doing a great job making this car really wide, maybe to all the way to the extent of the rules, perhaps, Kevin, but he's doing a good job.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as a driver, it's your job to definitely kind of rely on those rules and see how far you can push them. And in the end, you're still trying to follow the rule, but you're trying to take advantage of any available kind of squishy room that it may have.
So if they give you a foot, you're going to take a mile, essentially. And if they don't give you the mile, you're going to go back and take 1 foot and then an inch on top of that.
Well, I mean, really, if they don't tell you anything, you just keep going more and more and more until they finally say something. So that's how far we take it out. Just to see, well, am I doing it wrong now? What about now?
So right now it's Mercedes, Porsche, Mercedes, Lamborghini at the front of the field, like in the Mercedes AMGs out front. CJ, one of the things we talked about at length last year was the Mercedes AMG GT3 and how it's a little bit different in characteristics than you would think it would be based on how it sounds and the engine that it's got. It's a strong car in many aspects, but you would think that it'd be a straight line missile, but in reality it seems like the advantages of the Mercedes AMG are more in the tight and twisty stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, that's I think that most people would think with the big motor under the hood it would be a rocket on the straightaways, and actually it's not one of the faster ones on the straightaway. It's an all-around good car. It does all of the things that you need to do on the track very well, but doesn't stand out in any of them. Specifically, you would expect to see, a little bit of the over-under here. We'll see if he's able to cut back, and there you go.
Man, that's a big dive for Jan Halen.
Yeah, I saw 2 black marks going straight for the apex, so I knew the Porsche was doing something aggressive, and that's a big
here we go again.
Oh. Well, the question is, did he get pushed over there, or did he choose to go that way?
Well, I mean, he kept 2 tires on the track, so according to the race director, he was still on the racetrack.
Wow, this is getting really pushy shovey here, and Ryan DL following crisscross applesauce into turn 13. That was a heck of a move. And here comes
going
DL
around the outside.
Oh man, throw himself into the mix now. That's awesome.
It's getting pretty dicey out there.
Oh, this is very nerve-wracking to watch. DL muscling his way through, a little bit of hip check there, get the elbows out. Now side by side for second with the 33.
Yeah, he might have put himself in a bad position with the Lambo, but he gets it tucked back in to hold his position. It was really close quarters racing through the stadium section there.
Philip Ellis is certainly drawing the attention of every steward and spectator watching this race, I can tell you that. Here's DL, has a look at Ellis, but tucks back in line, and Altoid in the Lamborghini also just sort of hanging in the back, waiting. He's going to turn that car over when we get to the halfway point or close to it. I believe that, what car is that? That's one of the Lamborghinis. And I'm trying to look down my entry list to find out who joins him in that car.
Number 9.
It's going to be Ziad Gondor. Yes, the TR3 racing car. Thanks, CJ.
No, absolutely. They, you can kind of see here once the Porsche get out front that now it's been able to stretch out a little bit, and that's in its character until you go launching off the turn. It looked like he tried to go. That's one of the things with that turn. You try to wrap that right side on the inside of the curbing and carry it around, but if you get in there too fast, you slide out of it, and it kind of messes your lap up a good bit.
Saw Michael Cooper in one of the other DXTT racing cars, the purple base livery, sharing that car with Aaron Vogel for DXTT Racing, the number 19. There he is again. He's got the 88 car tucked in behind. That's the, or actually that is the, not the 88, that is Madison Snow. What is the 88 car? Zalus Motorsports car. A lot of new liveries, new faces, and new names in the series this year. Madison Snow's been around for a while. Has run the Rolex 24 on the IMSA side and has been around the block a few times. There's Andrea Caldarelli and Jordan Pepper. K-Pax Racing used to run the Bentley GT3s. A bit of a change.
Yeah, they seem to change manufacturers. That seems to have been their thing. Obviously, they had Volvos at one time, Porsche, Bentleys for the last few years. Now they're with Lambos. And they seem to do well with all of them. So I think whatever they choose seems to be a good choice. I think one of the things leading onto the back straightaway that I'm a bit concerned about is all of that debris that we saw there that they were picking up. That's a piece of carbon fiber or a bunch of pieces of carbon fiber now. I'm surprised that we haven't seen any cut down tires because that stuff is exceptionally sharp. And so I think, up to this point, we've seen some very lucky drivers not actually have any cut down tires out of that.
Yeah, again, carbon fiber, basically a weave of carbon material that's super, super lightweight, but very, very strong, and it's reinforced with resin, essentially, makes it extremely stiff. So when it breaks, it sort of shatters and it leaves little sharp pieces, and you don't want to run over that sort of stuff. There's a lot of carbon fiber on a GT3 car.
Pretty much all of it.
Yeah.
The entire body and everything like that, at least in the AMGs. If they weren't wrapped, later on today you'll see George Kurtz running in GT America in one that isn't wrapped. It's a backup car for us. And the entire car is carbon fiber. So they look really cool, and they go very fast, and they're very light because of that. But when they break, those pieces turn into little shards of very sharpness.
Andrea Caldarelli, Robbie Foley, just having a look there at some of the sectors, and there is the 96 of Foley, who has gone purple in one of the sectors. That signifies that he's the quickest driver on the racetrack of the race so far. And again, Foley has a lot of experience and pulled double duty last year running in Michelin Pilot Challenge as well as the IMSA GT3 Championship. So all over the place running GT3s and GT4s.
Yeah, as a pro driver, you want to be able to get in the car as much as you can. And he's actually been able to do that across many series.
Here's a great look at Race Vision powered by AWS, something we talked about a little earlier. CJ, 160.3, pretty quick for the 96 car.
No, absolutely. I'd actually expect some of the other ones to see approaching that. I wonder if the weather being a little bit warmer today has actually clipped the mile per hour by 1 or 2.
Sure, certainly could. And as you see, that of course is Michael Cooper now dealing with a handful of cars behind, 2 Lamborghinis and a BMW sandwiched in between. Out front, we haven't heard or seen Jan Halen in a while. No longer making waves, Kevin. Gone and free. Looked a whole lot like you in the TC race earlier today. With the guys fighting behind him, he can just look out the windshield and drive away.
Yeah, I think sometimes whenever you're following a car, especially with these GT3 cars that rely on a lot of aero, the car in front of you kind of limits your speed a lot.
I'm standing by with Fred Portat. He has been glued to these monitors watching Jan Halen extend that for about a half a second lead. Go back to the beginning of the race. How is that watching for you?
Well, watching is it's a little stressful, obviously. It's probably a little harder than being in the car sometimes. But Jan did a fantastic job. I think the car in front of him was blocking him for a few laps there, and we were fortunate to get by without an incident. And hopefully Jan can stretch the lead from here on.
An exciting couple moments on the back straightaway there. There's actually a shortcut on the back straight because of the west course here at Circuit of the Americas, where there's actually a shorter configuration of the racetrack that you can run. And right where that track rejoins, there's a bit of highway jersey barrier sticking out that Jan Halen almost found the end of. So that was a harrowing moment there for a second. DL's got some pressure from behind. The Lamborghini putting some pressure on it. For both of you guys, how big of a distraction is it to have someone in your mirror? Are you checking it before every braking zone, or you just drive and when they get alongside you, then you give it up?
I mean, it's you're kind of just using the mirrors as a reference. It depends on how far they're back. If they're a couple of seconds back, you're just kind of glancing at the mirror and seeing after you're kind of tracked out, are they still at the same place they were at the lap before, and you kind of know if they're gaining or if you're gaining. But as they start to get a little bit closer, you're trying to predict what they're thinking. So if you were behind a car, you would be strategizing for how to pass. So whenever some car is hunting you down, you have to have some kind of counter passing tactics going on just to figure out what they might do so that you can put you in a position to counter it.
And that's what Ellis likely was doing, and why there was the perception of blocking, because he was trying to anticipate where is Jan going to go, and then started to move in that direction. But Jan, I think in a couple cases, had already started that move, and therefore it looked more like blocking than it did defensive driving, as we call it.
Yeah, so I guess to clarify the difference between those two things, generally, as the SRO and the FIA put it, the block is a maneuver in response to a trailing car, and a defensive line is you can change your line once and not in reaction to someone behind you, but once it's a reactive move, then it becomes a block. As you see a pass for position here, that's the number 3 K-Pax Racing Lamborghini, Andrea Caldarelli getting by the 96 of Robbie Foley, and Robbie Foley wants back by, tucks back in. Also behind them is the Inception Racing number 70, Brennan Arieb in the out of the U.S., a bronze-rated driver. Had a spin on the outlap the other day when they were warming up, and or in the, I think that was might have been in GT America that
GT America, yeah.
And when that happened, I was sitting in the driver's meeting for GT America, and I remember the steward saying, if you lose your position on the pace lap, you cannot retake your position. Well, he went back and took that position back and got a penalty for it later. So that's why the driver's meeting is very important.
Got to pay attention. Got to pay attention to the rules and know what you're supposed to do. He did make it exciting, but had a few more spins thereafter, working his way through. But that's part of racing.
Part of racing. So out front, the craziness of the first 15 minutes has now elapsed, and we're sort of in this beginning period here where you're starting to get into the meat of the race, the middle portion, and you're sort of clicking off laps. And Kevin, how does your mindset change from this mad dash at the start to all of a sudden having to back it down, strategize a little bit, and figure out what pace you need to run to catch the guy in front or run away from the guy behind?
I think it really comes down to managing that. If you keep pushing to try to pass a car in front of you every single lap, you're going to destroy the tires and get them overheated, and that's going to be pretty kind of bad in the long term. So sometimes you have to relax just a little bit just to protect the tires and maybe just maintain the gap, and then let the next driver in the car kind of based on the next driver pairing kind of close the gap even further. But there's also some time that can be made up in pit stops if you get the strategy right.
So you see right in front of the white Lamborghini is Ryan DL, who had a thought of taking second place and kind of got muscled out of the way there and fell back into third place overall and second in Pro-Am. Pretty good start to the race so far. Look at the Lambo on the brakes kind of wiggling on the ABS. And CJ, going back to what you were mentioning about that anti-lock braking system, taking it to the edge of where it's capable of stopping the car. It seems like a lot of cars do this little shimmy on the brakes. Is that common, or is that getting in too deep?
It's common, but you do want to adjust the ABS in order to get rid of that, because that actually is weight transfer that's happening and upsetting the car, so you're not braking as efficiently as you can. So if I were to have that kind of wiggle, obviously you're getting in pretty late and standing on them pretty good. I'd probably be making an ABS adjustment on the fly there.
That's a big cut.
Yeah, he took a little bit of a shortcut, but I don't think it was as intentional as it looked. I think he got a little out of sorts and had to try to make it go.
Yeah, you saw a bit of a wiggle going off in there. And, Kevin, that's been something we've been seeing all weekend is the S's have been particularly treacherous. And we talked just about the bumps, and you said it wasn't a huge deal in the TC car, at least it didn't feel like it. But it seems like these GT3 cars and the GT4s are bouncing all over the place through the S's.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the big difference is the touring car that I race is a little bit softly sprung. I don't have any major aero on the car, so to get grip to go around a turn, I have to basically rely completely on the mechanical grip. And based on how much grip the track surface has, you need to find an optimum spring rate. And it just so happens to be that a soft spring rate works really well around COTA, which helps over those bumpy surfaces because you kind of sail over it and the spring just absorbs all that energy from the bump. But these GT3 cars, because they have the aerodynamic forces, if you put a soft spring on these cars, then the car will literally bottom out from the aero forces as the speed increases. So you have to run a stiff spring or maybe even some tuned bump stops to kind of limit the travel of the suspension so you don't bottom out the splitter.
See Ryan Diehl losing a spot there to the white Lamborghini, and that was all started on the middle of the back straightaway, the slipstream drafting up to the driver in front. And CJ, that's a pretty powerful effect at points, especially in the faster parts of the race.
Yeah, especially with as fast as they're going and as big of wings as you have. The wing is actually punching a big hole in the air for the car behind in order to be able to slip through. The 9 car actually has gotten a warning for the shortcut in turn 4, or back on the S's where we saw it kind of straight across rather than going around that the one berm. But that's just a warning, and as long as he doesn't continue, there won't be any further from that.
Generally give you once or twice to get it right, Kevin?
Right. Basically, the race directors are kind of making sure that you're not doing things like that every lap. There's definitely kind of cutting the track and using it to your advantage, but there's also kind of cutting the track because you actually weren't in control of the car and you're just regaining it. Right. So they have kind of guys that have racing experience that are reviewing this stuff, and they have a pretty good idea of which one of those two it really was.
So there is, again, Michael Cooper in the 3rd DXCT racing car. He's got the 3 tucked in behind Andrea Caldarelli, who just gone purple, so quickest lap last time by. And moving through the S's portion, this right-hand climb up the hill, and all this to the inside of the white line is fair game. The race director said everybody can use that. That's one of the 2 exceptions I remember from the drivers' meeting, the other being the exit at turn 19.
Yeah, I noticed that the Lamborghinis especially like to really wrap the inside almost into the dirt on some of these turns, and they're definitely making it work for them because they seem to be moving forward at this point in time. And a lot of that may have to do with how the cars are on the tires, because we have been out here a little while now, and you're starting to get into where the tire wear is starting to come into play.
So we've got about an hour and 2 minutes left. We've been in here for about 28 minutes. We've got a driver swap coming up around the halfway mark of this race, and there's a big move there by the 3 car of Caldarelli. Down the inside of Michael Cooper, takes the spot away. Driver swap and the minimum pit time this weekend. Everyone has to come down to pit lane for a minimum stop time. You get to switch a driver, change your tires, add your fuel, go back out there and go to the rest of the race. We saw yesterday that because of the bad weather conditions, the strategy was kind of all over the place. But today, I think it's a bit more cut and dry in terms of how you approach this afternoon.
Yeah, yesterday it was kind of changed up because they were waiting on the rain to see which tires to go to. But today, given that the pros are in the car and they're going to be putting, for the Pro-Am cars at least, putting the AMs in the car, they're likely going to keep the Pro in the car as long as they possibly can. Therefore have the fastest driver for the longest amount of time, therefore give themselves hopefully an advantage. But in most cases, you'll see everybody doing the same thing on this one.
So out front is Jan Halen. And of course, Philip Ellis is going to be running in 2nd right now. And I'm curious to see, this gap hasn't really gone as far towards the Porsche as I would have thought. It's 1.2 seconds. And last time by, they were pretty close to even, 208.7 to a 208.8. Alto in the Lamborghini at 208.7, so a little quicker than Ellis. Ryan Diehl at 209.2, pretty much right on pace with Colin Brown in the number 04. So the DXCT racing cars running 4th and 5th overall right now. And clear racetrack for them as well, and that's always nice, Kevin. After having a little bit of traffic and some argy-bargy in the early moments, you get some clean racetrack. All you can do is focus on the racetrack itself and not racing your competitors.
Yeah, that's right, and it really comes down to kind of being really kind of disciplined with yourself, and not, even though there's a car maybe 100 yards ahead of you, not being tempted to overdrive just a little bit to try to catch up, because it's kind of counterintuitive, but at some point, the harder you drive, you start slowing down because it's just too much for the car.
Colin running inside the top 5 in the 04. Colin's got lots of racing experience, comes from a racing family. I've heard about Colin's experience growing up where his dad would put him out on the kart track in the backyard, change one tire by about half a pound of air in each one, and go out there, send him out and ask him which tire it was that he changed. There's no better way, I don't think, that you can figure out how to adjust car dynamics based on something like that.
Yeah, no better to if you want to be a pro racing car driver to have a pro racing engineer as a dad, as as Colin has. Jeff has really done a great job teaching him to be a race car driver as well as a great human.
And Colin is a great guy, and actually the entire family is a great guy. But going back to the karting thing, I commentated the Skip Barber race on Friday afternoon. A lot of the drivers in that series come from a karting background. Is that something that either you guys grew up doing at all or had the opportunity to do, or did you jump in a different way?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I drove go-karts when my family went to the beach. You know, those those ones with the guards around the wheels.
Yes.
And I would drive as much as my parents would let me, but never competitively. It was kind of later in high school. I had a driver's license. I had my own car that I finally was able to get on track. I had been doing it on some simulations, some early stuff in the 2000s, but a lot not as advanced as what we have today with like Extended Corsa, but still taught me a lot about race lines and stuff like that. So a little bit different track than go-karts for me.
And then CJ jumping straight into the big boy toys.
Yeah, I went straight in the big boys. So I didn't, really get into any kind of track stuff till, I was, late 20s type range. And, my family history, my grandfather and my father both had NASCAR licenses. My grandfather was a NASCAR driver in 1958.
Did I not know this about you?
So
I
haven't really talked about it much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like my grandfather was out there racing it, as the king or anything like that, but did have the license and did do some of the NASCAR stuff at its roots.
Feel the pressure building here in pit lane. We talked prior to the race, and you talked about the consistency that your team is going to need. As you zone in for this change, what will be your strength?
Keep at least a small percentage of what these guys are doing. I mean, they're doing an unbelievable job. Giacomo is so fast. He's got a natural speed, and he's one of the fastest drivers I've ever been with. So, it's an unbelievable to watch. It makes us all a bit nervous to get in the cars and try to emulate them, but that's why we're the hands and we're the pros.
Just watching the Lamborghini at the exit at turn 19, and we both looked at each other like, wow, the big bunny hop over the curb at the exit. We saw a little puff of smoke out the back there, CJ.
Yeah, absolutely. It's okay to have a little puff of smoke because it's likely some of the diffuser or the underbelly, the flat bottom of the car.
Nothing important.
Yeah, but sometimes if you get a little too hard on those, you'll get past those and get into the oil pans and stuff, and we've actually experienced some of that. So anytime I see that, I always cringe.
Some race vision powered by AWS. Top speeds at the S is Jan Halen in the rear-engine Porsche, 137.3. Those are the fastest speeds we've seen all weekend.
Yeah, car handles really well. The other thing is that the Porsche, because it's the rear engine, it actually carries the engine higher in the rear. So you're able to kind of charge through the S's a little bit without the fear of hitting the engine, drain pan or the bottom of the engine on one of those curbs.
And I was actually corrected yesterday. Kevin corrected me when I thought that they didn't have the anti-cut yellow curbs there in the S's. And Kevin was like, oh, they're there. They're just covered in rubber and they're black. You can't see them anymore. They're definitely there.
They're there, and a lot of us were ignoring them. I know I, for one, was driving over top of them through my whole race today. So, it's honestly, as a driver, it's a little hard. It's better when they're yellow because you can kind of judge how you're going through the turn because you can see them, and when they're black, you can't see it until you're right up on top of it.
You should try to straddle it, right? So you're not. Do you try to hop it with the wheels? Do you try to straddle it between them?
I try to straddle it, but honestly, the suspension on the Civic Type R is pretty compliant. So if I get it a little bit wrong, I can still hit it as long as I'm not hitting the highest part, and the car takes it and doesn't upset it very much.
That's pretty impressive. We've got a battle for lead reshaping here. Jan Halen coming back into the clutches of Philip Ellis. A little bit surprising, perhaps. Maybe used up the tires a bit too much here, CJ.
Yeah, I think it's part of the race, plan, if you will. Is if you're charging too hard for too long, your tires get hot, and sometimes I think that's what Ellis has probably done is backed off, let the tires come back to him. and regroup and make another charge here as we're getting closer to when we'll actually be doing driver changes. His goal will be to hand off to, his co-driver in first place, and that's what everybody's goal at the front here is trying to do.
Well, we saw the defensive driving from Ellis earlier. I'm curious if now Jan Helen's going to take matters into his own hands and sort of repay the favor. I'm sure the stewards are hoping that they just let it go at this point, Kevin, but it was pretty spicy earlier, and I think everyone's had enough of the spicy chili tonight at dinner here.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of body work hanging off the side of Michael Cooper's car there, but yeah, I mean, as going back to what you were saying, it really comes down to where the Mercedes is going to kind of catch the Porsche and where the Mercedes thinks he has an advantage. And when you're the lead car, you're kind of it doesn't help your lap time to drive defensively. In fact, you drive a little bit slower to do it. So you're going to delay that as long as you can and only really pull it out when you have to.
Trying to see what that is hanging off the right front.
It actually looks, I thought it was part of the canard, that big arrow piece there, but actually I think it looks like part of the inner fender liner or the inside of the wheel well. Or somebody else's piece is part that happened to stick to the car maybe through this section.
Yeah, we just saw every time they pan the camera through turn number 11, we can still see that there's something sitting there, which is probably remainder parts sitting at the exit of turn 11. So it's quite the minefield down there at the far end of the racetrack. And I've always wondered, this is something I've actually always wondered, is as a race car driver, when you see debris, how fast is the reaction to that? I mean, how far along or ahead do you see it? And is it easy to avoid that sort of stuff, or is it pretty hard to?
It really depends on where on the track it is. I mean, if you see debris, you avoid it. But if you come up on it and it's right where you're headed and you don't really have a lot of choice, sometimes you're at the limit and sometimes you end up picking up otherwise, and that's a lot of times how you end up with pieces of other people's car jammed into yours.
Kevin, this morning in the TC race, there was a bumper sitting in turn 1, and there were some other parts and pieces laying around. Out of the way for the most part, thankfully, but I'm sure that's a common occurrence.
Right. I mean, fortunately, the race series will give kind of an announcement to all the crews, and the crews kind of relay that information over the radio to all the drivers. So I knew it was there before I got there, and then in addition to that, the corner workers will put out kind of a debris flag if they see it. And fortunately, it was a full-size rear bumper, so it was pretty obvious.
And bright yellow,
and it was
too.
bright yellow, so as I went up the hill in turn 1, I was able to spot it pretty early. And like you said, fortunately it was off the racing line, so I just kind of made a mental note where it was and made sure I didn't drive out there the rest of the race.
That was actually the entire front end of the 350 or 370Z that Rob Hines was driving. It was the entire front end of it. You know Rob from racing in SCCA. He also had a little damage to the rear bumper as well, so yeah. I don't know what caused it, but it definitely was a bit of a minefield up there.
Yeah, they had a bit of an accordion effect racing for about 4th in the TC category, running up the hill towards turn 1. I think Rob ran into the back of somebody, then someone ran into the back of him, and parts and pieces went flying, and some sat there, some got dragged around, and even the TCA leader, Caleb Bacon, in the leading Hyundai, had his side skirt dragging off. I was really impressed with the bracket that was holding it on. It was a really well-engineered piece.
Well, it eventually fell off. I think during the cool-down lap after the checkered flag, I was like, oh, there's another body part there. So I think that was the exit of turn 9. There was a rocker panel, so that makes sense.
There it is. Found it. There's the 33 closing right back up to the tailpipe. That was a big dive there to close up and into the carousel. Coming up on the time to swap drivers and get near it. So if you're in the leading Porsche, CJ, do you pit now or would you wait till the 33 pits to make your stop?
So that is what we, from a race strategy perspective, you have the overcut or the undercut. Do you pit as soon as you possibly can? Get in there, get the other driver in there and go, and then attempt to try to have the faster laps once you return out, or the other car stays out and tries to do the overcut, meaning that it's going to try to go faster on the lap that they go out and around than the car that's actually in the pit lane comes out and is able to do. So it's part of race strategy, and in the end what you want to do is be able to have your pit stop and end up in the lead afterwards. And I think in this case, depending on how the timing flies, I think given that in their case, it's a little different because they're both pros going to be in the car. The next driver getting in is likely as fast. Normally pros are pretty close to each other, so they'll make the choice or probably have a strategy that they'll go with, as far as what they're going to do. if this were going the other way and you had an AM that was getting out of the car, I think on this lap maybe they might be able to actually do that, because it looks like the timing's going to click down to the 50-minute mark just as they're getting close.
So you've got minute 50 to minute 40 to make this stop, so about a 10-minute window. And the tricky part about the track like this is that it's so long in lap time, over 2 minutes, that if you have to really pay attention towards the end of that window, that you don't get yourself in a situation where you pass the pit entry, then can't get back around before the pit window closes. So that's going to be a challenge as well. And in the background, I see that white Lamborghini creeping into the mix, and so is Ryan DL, just hanging on to the back of this front pack.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, as we get closer to handing off, in the Pro-Am category, the thing that you'll notice is like I said, a lot of the pros are reasonably close on speed, and because that's what they do for a living, they're very good at it. When you get into the amateurs, you're going to have a high degree of different levels of capability within that, and I think that's where you see the cars differentiate quite a bit. Your faster bronze drivers will move to the front, and those that don't have as much experience, even like myself, tend to find their way to the mid pack or towards the back.
Wow, way wide went the 33 that time through. That'll draw some attention. Again, the drivers were given in the drivers' meeting, from my understanding, there's 2 rows of curbing at the exit of 19. There's some green paint, and then there's a white line. The white line is the limit. You've got to keep 2 tires on or within that line. That was 4 tires off and away, as we have the number 6 car hitting pit lane. That's the K-Pax racing car with Corey Lewis in it. He's going to turn it over to Giovanni Venturini and do their driver swap, one of the first drivers in here, CJ.
I think that's a good choice. I mean, obviously they're going for the undercut and see if they can come out and put their car out into some clean air so that they can run some fast laps.
There's Michael Cooper again. We still have that piece of something hanging there, but it must not be important enough to be an issue. I'm sure when it comes down to pit lane, we'll see someone take a yank at it and see if they can pull it out, or take a sledgehammer or something to it. That's the NASCAR way, right?
Right. I doubt we'll see any sledgehammers come out, but it's possible.
I remember there was a year or 2 ago at Talladega, they had like a whole circular saw out there and try to take off. That was so cool.
Yeah, I think those things are made to cut the cracks in concrete, but they figured they can cut the body off of a NASCAR really fast with them, and they're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't think I'd want to see any of those working on the carbon fiber out there. These poor cars, carbon fiber and carbon Kevlar, would make quite a big mess.
Also, it's not inexpensive to replace body panels and pieces, so you don't necessarily want to take them at them with a hacksaw. Probably.
I've unfortunately had to pay for some of those, and they are very expensive. So some of the body panels on some of these cars, you could actually buy some of the TCA cars outright.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
that's a really interesting little factoid there. But
yeah,
that's an unfortunate one. But that's
very unfortunate.
Not one of the. That's not a fun fact, is what I'm getting at. That's an unfun fact. Interesting to see the 33 sort of come back into the clutches of Alto right now in the number 9 TR3 Lamborghini. He was just battling for the lead, and here he is falling back into the clutches of the 3rd place car. So
yeah, I mean, he ran wide through 19 the last time, and it makes you wonder if he's kind of hitting a wall with his tires and he's losing a lot of grip. So that's one thing, especially when you go into this kind of thought for pit strategy. Really, for an undercut or an overcut, you really kind of look at your lap times, and you know what your lap times can be with new tires, and if your current lap time is really far off of that, then you can kind of gain some time by going ahead and putting the new tires on early versus staying out on the slower kind of tires and resulting in a slower lap time.
3 car hits pit lane. That's the K-Pax racing car, Andrea Caldarelli. And we'll turn over the machine to Jordan Pepper. And they did a great job in the early part of the weekend.
Yeah, we can see that number 3 Lamborghini making our way here to the K-Pax pit stop. I talked to Jordan Pepper before he put on his helmet. He said, I got to give it all I've got. Well, guys, you might remember he has had pressure here at COTA this weekend in the qualifying session from a tire puncture. He waited to the last lap to put this number 3 Lamborghini on the pole position. But you see that driver change happening right here. 4 new Pirelli Swicks will go on this Lamborghini, as well as refueling for a minimum of 77 seconds here in pit lane.
So 77 seconds is what they said down there. So you got to be on there for at least that long. But the goal, at least, is to complete the pit stop and be waiting on that 77-second timer. If the timer elapses and you're still bolting and buckling and doing all sorts of stuff, CJ, it's not really efficient.
No, not at all, because you also have to factor in the amount of time it takes you to go from your pit box to pit exit, because that 77 seconds starts when you enter pit lane and ends when you exit. So the idea being is that it's going to take so much time for you to be able to get from the entrance to your pit box, do all the work, be sitting there waiting, and then you know exactly how long it's supposed to take you to depart your pit box and get to that line. You don't want to get there early, but you don't want to get there late. Dead on perfect would be great.
77.422 for that team there. That's about pretty close. Half a second, cutting it pretty narrow there. So back up to the leader, Jan Halen in the Porsche 911 GT3R. A little wide through turn 19, going to stay on track for now. And they're going to run this probably to the end of the pit opening here, Kevin, and then they're going to change drivers, and then we're going to see probably a little bit more moving around as we put the different drivers in whose skill levels aren't necessarily totally aligned with the drivers that were in there before, so a little bit of accordioning about to happen.
Right, it's basically going to shuffle up the field a little bit, just like you said, because of the different levels of experience and different levels of kind of talent with these cars, and it really is with the pros in the car to start with, you really see how they perform, but really once we switch it up, you're going to see the kind of pro cars kind of stay out front, and some of the Pro-Am cars will maybe reshuffle a little bit because their skill level is going to be a little bit more spread out.
There's Alto going to turn the car over to Ziad Gondor. I think Gondor was in a Ferrari last year, so right. Changing over to the other Italian manufacturer. And personally, I think Lamborghini sounds a little better. The Ferrari sounds good. It's got a little quieter, got a little turbo sound in there. But the Lamborghini naturally aspirated V10 in that car, and boy, it makes a noise.
Yeah, that's right. And it's really neat to kind of see all the different kinds of engines that are in the GT World Challenge, like the V6 twin turbo here that we're looking at with the Acura NSX, all the way to the thundering V8s in the Mercedes, and the high-pitched screaming six-cylinder here in the 911, and the V10s in the Lamborghini. So there's so many different engines, so many different sounds. It's a really neat experience.
So we've got a V6, we've got an inline 6 with the Porsche, we've got a couple different kinds of V8s, we've got a V10. Am I missing anything? That's 4 different engine types. That's pretty good.
I think the Ferrari, if we have any in the field, they're twin turbo V8.
Okay, so that's a little different.
Yep.
Versus a naturally aspirated V8 that would be in the Mercedes-AMG GT3. And I myself am partial to the naturally aspirated engines because they typically make more interesting noises. By more interesting, I mean they make you drop whatever you're holding because they're super loud and make the ground vibrate.
Well, the turbos on the engine actually act as a natural muffler.
Yes.
So you do get a little bit of a different sound out of them, that's for sure. But the interesting thing about the AMG is that you buy a GTR street car these days, and they're actually a 4-liter twin turbo or bi-turbo. But in the GT3 cars, still running what is actually a 6.2 liter naturally aspirated engine, and for good cause.
Oh, that looks to might be a tire puncture for. Is this the number 77 Compass Racing car?
Yeah, I think he's coming out of pit lane. It makes you wonder if they didn't get the wheel installed correctly, and it's partially off. So it looks like they didn't get it fully installed.
And again, these are not your typical 5 lug nut wheels. These are essentially, whoa, there's a big cut there for 0.4.
I think there was a good reason for him to do that cut. So.
Yeah, but the tire just came off, so that's no good.
This is going to be interesting because we may get a yellow and pit windows open, and that always causes all kinds of nightmares for strategy.
The way you said that, it didn't sound like you were thinking about this being fun.
No, and remember that a lot of the teams like DXDT were planning on having their drivers swapped out towards the end of this time so that they'd have the pro in the car as long as they could. Race control is right now, I'm sure, trying to let all the cars cycle through before they throw the yellow flag, depending on where the NSX has found a hole to put themselves and where that wheel went.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, going back to the wheels, most passenger cars are held on by 4 or 5 small lug nuts, and you have 4 or 5 different points of failure. On these cars, you have one really big lug nut, this massive thing that's about 2 inches in diameter, and you get one chance to thread that on there properly. And if it gets threaded on or cross-threaded, it won't hold on very well.
Yeah, and one of the things about those is that you have to get there is actually when you're zinging them on, you have to get it far enough that there's a detent that'll come out and actually make sure it stays on there regardless. And what I've seen is that sometimes either they don't get it on far enough or that detent doesn't protrude enough, and the next thing you know, with use normally they'll spin back off. That one happened really quickly, so I have a feeling they didn't get much of a normally when you're doing this, there's an amount of uggas that you want to have. I don't think you got enough uggas.
Right, and there are some studs that you have to line up on the wheel to keep the kind of hub from spinning. So if you get the wheel on but don't get those studs lined up and tighten the nut will initially be tight, but then once you get some load in the wheel, the nut will literally just come right off.
Making our way right to us right now, and Jan was able to create almost a 1.5 second lead over Ellis on his turn. I saw Fred Portad before he was about to get in the car, guys. He talked about the anxiety that he had watching that battle at the beginning of the race, but he was rather stoic here. He was calm, not moving, focused in on the effort ahead to keep this team right in the #1 position.
So pit window closed here in race 2, round 2 here at Circuit of the Americas. Again, waiting for what we expect to be a full course yellow situation with the 77 Compass racing car with Matt McMurray behind the wheel, stuck somewhere over by the S's, and somewhere also there was a Pirelli racing slick attached to a wheel sitting somewhere on course or off course. So everybody did make it to pit lane. It was a very busy place. And look, there's the 04 waiting and free and clear and away, and actually pulled in front of
Michael Cooper is pulled to a stop at the end of pit lane there.
It's actually going to be Aaron Vogel in there now.
That's right. Sorry.
So the 19 car, the DXDT Racing Mercedes, halted on pit lane. And could have just stalled the car potentially, CJ?
Could have, but the pit box is a lot further down pit lane, so there is a possibility of having an issue, maybe a loose wheel and stopped rather than have what happened to the others.
Wow, interesting. So, going the wrong direction, that's for sure. Let's go back out front.
Yeah.
And this time it's going to be turned over to the 20 car, the Wright Motorsports machine. Fred Portad now in front of the number 33 driver, which will now be Russell Ward behind the wheel for the Windward Racing car. Pops out to driver's left, and no caution. I haven't seen a wheel. I haven't seen a car. So somewhere those two things have disappeared, and that will keep us green.
Right. One kind of neat thing you see here at the guardrail, there's these kind of openings that are marked with yellow paint, and those are kind of marked to put your car if you can't make it around a lap, and it's potential that the Acura found one of those, and maybe the wheel ended up near a tire wall anyway, and
join the club, huh? Just
right.
Jump on top of the pile. Anyone ever seen that video from the V8 Supercars? I think it was Marcus Ambrose or something. The wheel came off and rolled all the way down the racetrack and then hopped right up on top of a tire bundle and went back home. For the lead here, here comes the 33 around the outside of Fred Portad and takes the spot away. A lot less drama than was involved earlier in the day, that's for sure. And there's the yellow, full course. So the 77 didn't get as far off track as we had hoped. But with 37 minutes to go, we're going to get this thing prepared for a yellow. So we just came to pit lane, so no pit stops coming, I would assume.
So race control did as we expected. They tried to get all the cars cycled through during the pit stop so that no one got trapped a lap behind or otherwise. The interesting thing now is, let's go back to the discussion we were having about the different types of drivers. There's the wheel. Didn't find a home, laying out there in the middle of nowhere. But you, with the different types of drivers you now have, now they're all going to be nose to tail. Any of the gap that your pro just gave you or gifted you by being out front or out towards the front is all gone. Now this is all going to be driver heads up. All in a line, ready to go. So we've now got a great battle on our hands, and we're going to see, who can rise to the top. You obviously have the pros that are currently out there, out front, but then, in your pro-am space, you're going to have your amateurs, everybody below that's going to be out there and showing what they can do.
Well, we're going to have a short break here during the safety car period to catch our breath. Have a look back at round number 1 from Sonoma. We'll be back in a few.
Since it opened in 1968, Sonoma Raceway has challenged many of the world's best road racers. 32 years ago, it hosted the first ever World Challenge event, and this weekend it is the site of round 1 of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS.
A hacking attack on a water treatment plant is raising big questions about the vulnerability.
So if we think about adversaries, we have them in the world, the physical world, and the electronic world, as well as the racetrack. And we spend a lot of time, obviously, with folks in the paddock and on track. And you know, there's a lot of hardcore competitors out here, and they're they're full on the track, and lots of them are friends afterwards. And you know, that's a great thing about this series in SRO. If we think about cybersecurity, they tend to be foe and stay foe. A lot of nation-state actors that are out there across any number of countries. If we look at e-crime, look at hacktivism, it's all problematic for many customers that are out there, and that's why CrowdStrike is focused so hard on preventing breaches for all of our customers.
In the final laps of a grueling race, where each pass was hard-fought, that razor-thin margin between collision and escape was ever present, and every last hour of track study has steered us here, into the lead, where a victory, if won, will be ours, together.
Checkered flag awaits. George Kurtz sweeps the weekend at Sonoma.
We knew we had the speed this weekend. Actually, had to work through some challenges, highs and lows, as we talked about.
We talked to you prior to the broadcast just how gratifying the win was yesterday. What will you take from this weekend?
Well, if you put the work in and you put your head down, you can accomplish what you want. Get the win, and it's great for the team, and we look forward to the GT race.
When the car on fresh tires is flashing their grille in the mirror, they are assaulting the choreography of each pit stop, rehearsed like a ballet, thousands of times. Teams of engineers meticulously balancing each car down to the gram. The analysts, up into the early hours of the morning, threat hunting in the network that accesses all of our most precious track data and IP. Our drivers, studying all lines, every turn on each track, we hold off their late attack. We thread the needle. We cross under the checkered flag. We race together. And whether you know it or not, you're part of this race.
Another team, if you go to their tent, the cars are so well prepared. You can see every attention to detail is focused on it. Right now, it is paying dividends with Colin Brown out in front of Jan Halen.
Victory will be achieved through the power of we win. CrowdStrike. Win as one.
Back live here for CrowdStrike Racing's coverage of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Safety car out, about 40 minutes remaining. We came out with 40 minutes remaining, and we've got 32 left for the number 77 Compass Racing car. Matt McMurray losing a right front wheel. That car skittered off track. The wheel stayed on track, and we had to go clean it up. So we're past the halfway point now. We were talking in the break, CJ, about how this is essentially just a sprint race now from here on out. 31 minutes to go. We'll probably have 28 or 27 when we get the green flag. And no gaps now. Everyone's right on top of each other. This changes the game quite a bit.
Yeah, this is basically turning out to be similar to the GT America race, where you actually have a sprint race of mostly bronze drivers. We'll have the few pros out front, but then behind that you'll have the bronze drivers all showing what they're made of, and running it out for the final 25 to 27 minutes, give or take.
So going back to our live timing here on the screen just to kind of figure out where everybody is. The drivers that we're following, the 63 and the 04. David Askew running in 3rd overall right now, so sitting on an overall podium, 2nd in Pro-Am. George Kurtz jumps in 3rd in class, 6th overall. Here's Amanda on pit lane.
With the answer, and we talked in the booth that the competitors will not like that you guys are behind them now, but what happened earlier in that run for you?
Yeah, I mean, the first lap was very, very intense, especially the first 4 corners. I got hit by 3 or 4 cars, so I dropped a little bit. And then in the hairpin, I got hit again, and so I lost a bit of time. But then I had good fun to recover a few overtakes, and definitely now the safety car will help us a little bit of a good last 30 minutes of the race.
Thank you, Andre. And guys, remember, it's still his first race here at the Circuit of the Americas. No mechanical issue there, just overwhelmed by the cars.
Yeah, and it looks like we race controls called a pit lane infringement against the number 9, requiring a drive-through penalty. So we should be seeing that at some point.
Interesting. So with the safety car pull off, looks like it did. It had the lights on all the way down towards turn 12, but we're off and racing again. Green flag back in the air. 30 minutes to go here for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. The run up the hill. A lot of weaving going on there, Kevin. Tires must not be completely up to temp. Big dive up the inside for the number 6 car. That's the Venturini machine, Lamborghini Huracan. And in the middle of that is, looks like that's David Askew trying to hang on to the spot.
Yeah, that's right. Especially after these long yellows, all the heat in the tires kind of gets sucked out into the asphalt. So especially when you're behind the safety car, you try to warm the tires up, but it's hard to do it at low speed.
It's getting really racy here, but with the 2 CrowdStrike DXCT racing cars, again, Kurtz and Askew running nose to tail with the Lamborghini kind of splitting in between. And for George Kurtz, a lot of success at Sonoma and GT America. And Kurtz has really come into his own with this Mercedes AMG GT3. Really, really solid start to the year so far.
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually, a little bit of a funny story was that, a friend of ours that we may know actually was inquiring as to, when the hell did George Kurtz get so damn fast? And the truth of the matter is he's put in the time, the effort, does a lot of work, obviously in between his busy schedule as CEO of CrowdStrike, and has put the time in to the seat time in order to actually improve. And you can see it's paying off now as he goes inside David Askew.
And takes a spot away and moves into what will now be about 5th or 6th spot. Trading positions there. Whoa, Askew gets a little bit roughed up there by the 96 car. That is Michael Dinan now behind the wheel. And it's definitely elbows out, especially in this very tight section. Ooh, the 6 car almost got in there, Kevin. A lot of over-under here. It's really easy to get hip checked by a competitor. Is there anything you can do to prevent that, or is it just sort of a free-for-all when you go down there?
Well, I mean, the best thing that you can do is to just be so fast you drive away from everybody. But the kind of, because this track always goes from left to right to left to right, those kind of over-under opportunities are available all the way around the track. So really you have to kind of maybe compromise the entry to one turn so that you kind of put yourself in a disadvantageous place for someone else so that they can't get by you, and then hopefully you just kind of squeak away a little bit at a time throughout the rest of the lap.
George Kurtz went by Fred Pordat in the carousel, and that was a wild move there, CJ, but Kurtz up to 4th place. Great climb, only needs one more spot to get himself up on the overall podium. That would certainly be a successful day, but still a long way to go, 27 minutes.
Absolutely. Like I said, all that work is paying off. He's, rising to the top or working his way towards there. The around the outside in the carousel is a brave move.
Whoa! Whoop. There goes Askew. The exit of the S's, and I wonder if there was some help there potentially.
It did look like there was another car rather close there, and it is a place where you can get crossed up a bit. So it looks like David's up and going, so no harm, no foul, it looks like.
Got back rolling, and we'll continue with just a little bit of loss of some track position. Hopefully we'll get a look at how that came to be. I think we're just about to see it. All the timing and scoring went away, so I think, well, or not. Well, I thought we'd get a replay at that for a second.
Brought to you in partnership with Acura, Ferrari, and Lamborghini.
So you're waiting to come back to the Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS. And, of course, some pretty good fights throughout the field. We just saw George Kurtz go by a couple of drivers and David Askew go sliding down the field. And, again, presuming that there was some contact there in the S's. And there's a lot of speed differential between the different kinds of cars, and it's also very bumpy, so pretty easy to get off. We saw a car in the GT4 Sprint X race, or I think it was a Sprint X race on Saturday. Took a pretty big impact over there at the exit of the S's, got the car a little bit sideways and went straight on into the Armco and went over and up onto the lid for a second, which was kind of a scary accident, but walked away from it frustrated, but in otherwise good shape.
Yeah, it's a place that you can get crossed up coming out. That very last turn or of the chicane there through the S's there, the very last one, you know, in my case, we're actually downshifting right there and, you know, trying to make your way through. The other thing is if you get on top of it, you'll actually get lost.
Yeah, as we look here, I think the Dynan car, the BMW, the number board that's normally in the windshield has come off the windshield and is dangling around as he's going around the track. So that's going to be a huge distraction for him.
I see what you were mentioning. We'll have to get a better look at it here in a second, but that's distracting. And also, do those things weigh a lot, or are they pretty lightweight, those things?
They're pretty lightweight. They're basically just circuit boards with LEDs kind of put onto it, and it's got a rubberized coating. So it's not that light, and I'm sure the wiring can handle the stress, but it's basically a little kind of tick-tock clock just going over in the corner of the windshield.
Yeah, it's got to be distracting as all get out in there. And the other thing is he's, you know, strapped in, so he probably can't reach it to grab it and yank it off. That's what I tried to do. I tried to yank it down and throw it out the window.
If it doesn't make the car go faster, it shouldn't be on the car, right?
Yeah, there you go. If it's distracting, you know, I'm sure they can still get their data even without the board up there.
Yeah. So there is the race-leading car, the number 33 of Russell Ward. In behind is the 3 car. That's Jordan Pepper now. Venturini in third rather, and that was a pretty big dive up the inside in turn 11. Those Lamborghinis look pretty good on the brakes there, Kevin.
Yeah, that's right. I think there's so many different braking lines that you can take with this track, because most of the brake zones and the long straightaways kind of open up towards the apex, and the track gets really wide, and it gives you some options to kind of brake straight towards the apex, and you can kind of straighten up your brake zone and brake really late, but the consequence is you have a really slow apex speed, which gives someone else the opportunity to kind of do an over-under and try to get you back. So you have lots of different strategies, and you have to pick and choose what's the best one.
Watching Venturini run wide at the exit of 19, we've been seeing a couple cars kind of do that dip and dive with the rough runoff room over there. The final 23 minutes beginning here shortly. And we've had a little bit of stretching out here, but I don't think we're done just yet. And we're going to see how the tires wear out and factor into the end of this race. George Kurtz running 4th all by himself there. And I want to keep an eye on the lap times that George is running, see if he's got anything for Venturini here at the end. Kurtz last time by a 2:08.8, 2/10 quicker than Venturini. So opportunity to move forward onto the podium.
Yeah, George is, you know, I think his intent is to move forward, and that's he's put his head down and definitely has good pace.
That pass, that was again the 2 teammates there, the K-Pax racing cars swapping spots. And back live now, waiting for them to crest over. I think we're looking at the crest of 9 and 10. And there we are towards 11, and this is for the lead. Jordan Pepper on a mission. Ward goes defensive, now chases him back over to driver's right. And wow, Pepper's in deep and got it done. What a move. That was amazing around the outside there. Kevin, either that or Ward stomped on the binders way too soon.
That was very impressive. I wonder if maybe the brake zone on the inside is a little bumpy, and the Mercedes kind of took off a little bit too much speed, but that was a very decisive move around the outside of a hairpin.
Well, he's trying to do the same thing, but didn't quite have the magic that Pepper did. They're going to cross him up here at the exit of turn 13, and now the Lamborghini's teaming up on the Mercedes in the tight and twisty bits here. And where did Venturini go? All the way to driver's left to try to arc it in and get a better run, and now he's got overlap on the 33. Whoa, Ward getting chased over onto the rumble strips. And again around the outside of Lamborghini going, but I don't think he did it. Wow, those Lambos are good, aren't they?
They must have a lot of really good drive off the turn right now to be able to kind of square the car up and then get on the power to kind of squirt out and pull that kind of pass off, because these turns are deceivingly tight. That is really impressive with these cars.
That was pretty phenomenal for both Pepper and Venturini to do that. Put Russell Ward from first to third in just one lap. And now my question becomes, does Venturini have anything for Pepper, or will Pepper just drive off into the distance? That 3 car has won a handful of races so far this year and has been looking pretty unstoppable. CJ, it's not a slow car, and there's not slow drivers, that's for sure.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think we've seen the end of the battles. I think there'll still be, at least between the Lamborghinis, I think there's still something to be had there. We'll see if if George can try to make his way forward and play in the pro battle a little bit if given the chance here.
Yeah, so George Kurtz again, last time by, was quicker than Russell Ward, which would put him third. And the good news is Kurtz is actually leading the Pro-Am race right now. So in class, he's leading. Poor Dad second in Pro-Am, then Reeb in third, Harward in fourth, and the 63 of David Askew, right now running 6th in class, 11th overall, still recovering from that spin in the S's. Again, George Kurtz and Colin Brown both putting on a really good performance today, and hopefully continuing to climb towards the end of this one, but they got to be really happy with their performance. Love this onboard shot here too.
Yeah, we could see George getting down. This is where the AMG normally does a really good job getting the power down. You could see a brief flicker to the right of the little blue lights. That was traction control kicking in as he was trying to get off, so trying to get all that power down. He'll be going all the way through into 6th gear just about here, and hitting the brake markers right about the 125, 100 mark in there, and trail braking all the way down to the apex of the turn. As soon as you get across that little bump, back straight to the throttle, let the traction control help you to pull out of there, and move your way down, grab 3rd gear before you take the right-hand turn.
So another interesting thing here we've got on our timing screen is the trap speed at Sector 2. We can see that as they came across that trap speed, Pepper ran 247 kilometers an hour, about 153 miles an hour. That's exactly what George Kurtz did at the trap speed there too. So the Lamborghini, as good as it's getting off the corners, the Mercedes-AMG doing much the same. Russell Ward of the Mercedes, 249.4 is actually the quickest at that trap speed area, quicker than Venturini in second. So an interesting little tidbit there. The fastest car on the racetrack, though, in the trap area would be 255 miles an hour, or excuse me, kilometers an hour. That miles an hour would be flying down there. Literally. Yeah. Reeb in the McLaren 720S was 255 kilometers an hour in that portion. 255 would be like Indy cars with, another liter of displacement and another turbo on there.
Maybe even no wings.
Yeah, and no wings. There's that McLaren. Also, the wings fold up on that thing, too. Have you seen the McLaren with the doors open?
No.
It's so cool. It's like hinge forward and up. And it looks like a Batmobile down there in the pit lane. It's a cool-looking car.
It's fast on track because I don't know if it's the same car or it runs in GT America. It looks like the same car. Is blisteringly fast there.
Whoa, I heard tires, and it's the 88. That is, again, the Harward machine. That's Jason Harward for Zalus Motorsport, and you heard the tires screeching from a long way away. Yeah. I wonder if this is the same. I mean, it looked like the same spot that Askew got crossed up. It could be the bumps.
Yeah, back in through there a little bit further forward when he got it. But once again, the bumps. And given that we're able to use those berms, I think you're able to you try to hit them a little bit, and if you get offline a little bit, like Kevin said earlier, it can upset the car quite a bit.
Yeah, and they've repaved this track in a couple areas a few different times in hopes of sort of smoothing out that bumpiness. But the track underneath is all sorts of soil that sorts to compacts at different rates, and this track is sunken in various areas over the years, and they've tried to combat that, but it's still very bumpy at portions.
Yeah, and it continues to present itself. I know that they shaved it in some ways. We came down to test and found some new bumps that had appeared, and in some cases you can use those bumps. I know there's a bit of a hump, I guess you call it, that I actually use, going under the bridge after turn 3 there, to be able to know where to start my turn in. As soon as the car goes up, I turn left.
Also, just coming into the racetrack in the under tunnel too, you come up to the crest. After you come through the tunnel, there's a big jump there, even in the infield. So it's not only the racetrack, it's all the surrounding area. For the lead with 17 minutes to go, Venturini and is pressuring Pepper now, which is exciting. We got a battle for the lead started brewing here, Kevin.
Yeah, I think this might be some of the most pressure that this K-Pax team has had kind of coming in through this season so far. So definitely going to be interesting to see who can hold it together for the next 16 and a half minutes.
Whoa, a lot of movement out of the three of Pepper. Getting a little bit slidey through the S's. Again, high speed, high downforce area, and Venturini bringing the pressure. That's got to be a distraction to Pepper, I'm sure. And climbing up the hill now, you were mentioning how tight they were holding it through turn 8. But I think one driver that would like to see this happen is Russell Ward and George Kurtz, for that matter. Watching these two fight could bring them back into the mix.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. I know George is sitting in a good position, obviously leading the Pro-Am race. So I don't know how much he wants to get up there and battle with these guys. I know he would love nothing more than to get up there and actually be leading the overall race. But at the same time, he has to see what kind of battles he has back there with it, coming from behind him.
Towards turn 12 now, Pepper pulls away between 11 and 12. Russell Ward closes in now on Venturini. I don't know if consistency is really in the 6 cars camp right now. Kind of catching the leader, then falling back to third, and then catching the leader, all over the place, Kevin.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes you may try to set yourself up for a pass, and maybe you hit a bump just a little bit wrong, or maybe it just doesn't work out, and you end up losing some time. And unfortunately, when you're dealing with the pro drivers at this level, it's really hard to kind of claw that track position back.
Through the carousel now, 15 minutes to go. Down to the last 5 or 6 laps at this point. Kind of coasting over the curbing on the inside. And a lot of the discussion around the rain racing earlier in the weekend was the inside curbs really weren't much of an issue because the car is unloaded as you go over those inside curbs, but the outside ones, you had all the weight on the right side of the car or the left side of the car, depending on which way you were turning. And you put all that weight on one of those wet curbs, and around you went. And now that there's no rain or water to worry about, you can hammer them all day long in both directions, and who cares?
Yeah, with the kind of fancy suspensions that these GT3 cars, they can do it a little bit better than what we can do in the touring car. So the inside curbs, because it's unloaded, even in the dry, we can be pretty aggressive with them. But the kind of exit curbs, you have to be a little careful because you have that outside wheel loaded so much. There's not a lot of travel left in the damper, and you can hit the bump stop, and then you get a lot of understeer or oversteer, or who knows.
It's an experience every time to figure out what it's going to do, I'm sure. Back a little ways in the field. This is for Pro-Am, the second place battle. Fred Pordad and Reeb fighting for that second spot. Porsche versus McLaren. And now on board with George Kurtz.
Well, they were able to pick up 2 positions on that restart and lead this Pro-Am class. And Con, as you watch George do his thing, what do you like from him, what he's doing?
Well, I like when he drives from third in class to the lead, for sure. He's doing a great job, I mean, he's really put a lot of effort in and work over the last few years and elevated his game. So watching him, do what he did there on the restart was great. This CrowdStrike car has been pretty fast all weekend. Start was a bit of a challenge, just every kind of buddy fired it in there, and it was a bit of a mess. And everyone's so close that opening stint. You're all just kind of bumper to bumper. And then, I mean, it's going good. These guys done a really good job all weekend. It's been a lot of work. We've had a lot of cars to keep up with, and all the weather and all that. So just proud of these guys, and this Mercedes has been great.
So Colin Brown jumping out of the car and impressed with his teammate, driving forward into the lead in class, and CJ with only 13 minutes to go. The goal now is to just maintain, right?
Maintain and not get distracted by the car that's directly behind George. You actually have another pro class car in Denon that's behind him. And catching, little by little, George is pretty close to on pace. I think he's only a few tenths off. Don't get into a battle with that pro car that's behind you, and stay on pace and do your thing, and not get crossed up.
Pick your battles, that's for sure. 12 minutes and 40 seconds left, and Jordan Pepper leads Venturini only by a couple tenths of a second, and there's some traffic up the road. Kevin, and you had a lot of traffic to deal with earlier today from the TCX category. Things got a little interesting with the driver that was chasing you getting caught up in that traffic. So there's the opportunity for that to kind of throw a wrench into things here.
Yeah, I mean, the traffic is always a big impact to the multi-class racing, and there's some places on the track where it's really good to kind of catch traffic because you can easily slip right by and it doesn't impact your lap time at all. But there's other areas that if you catch them, you have have to kind of be patient and sit behind them for a little while, and it can just take seconds off the lap. And the difficult thing is when you have a car chasing you is you don't want that part to happen, because now they're just going to really try to take advantage of it. So as the leading car catching traffic, you really try to manage where you're going to catch a car if you can, to manipulate the situation in a way that you can get by cleanly and quickly, so that the car behind you can't take advantage of you getting slowed up.
So towards the braking zone for turn 12 here. Couple car lengths between, and this is within striking distance, I'd say, CJ. I mean, if you can get within a car length or two, you can spook the driver in front of you. You can just throw a Hail Mary if you want, if you're that creative about it. I mean, you're close enough that the opportunity is there in the final 10 minutes to get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is that you have the changing, tire conditions, as well as far as the driver's concerned. It only takes one little bobble, and that car in second place could be in the lead and checking out.
And those one little bobbles have been happening a lot today. We've seen a lot of drivers chasing the cars around the racetrack. It seems like this COTA feels different to me than COTA felt last August. I'm not sure how different it feels from the driver's seat, but visually it looks sketchier, slipperier, bumpier. I'm not sure if that's because of just the bad weather and the heat and the temperature, but it feels different.
Well, I mean, the rain really changes the track. So the more it rains, it'll actually wash a lot of the rubber buildup right off the surface. And right after the track dries, you're talking about a very clean kind of asphalt that the tire doesn't want to stick to initially. So you have to drive over it for a little while and scrub off some of that rubber and fill in all the voids on the asphalt before the tire really sticks to it again. So I think part of what we're seeing is the track isn't in as grippy of a situation as it was last August.
How much of that did you feel earlier today? You were running the TC race, which, if I recall correctly, still had some puddles and dampness here and there. Was that a big deal earlier?
There was very little dry track out there when we started the race this morning, and we were all on slick tires because the sun was out and there was no additional moisture coming. So we knew the track was going to dry for the kind of as the race progressed. So initially it was all about trying to figure out on the one pace lap we had, by scrubbing your tires, figure out where the grip might be, and then when the green comes out, you just kind of make a few guesses and try to hang on to the car and not make any mistakes.
So 9 minutes and 20 seconds left. Out front, it's the two Lamborghinis. It's the 3 and the 6. That's the two K-Pax racing entries, Jordan Pepper and Giovanni Venturini. And not too far behind is Russell Ward for Windward Racing, and then not too far behind that, George Kurtz from DXDT Racing and the CrowdStrike AWS Mercedes AMG GT3. And checking back in on David Askew, up to 9th overall, continuing the climb back forward after the slip up in the S's a little while ago. And here's that traffic. I believe that is the Reardon Racing Lamborghini Huracan GT3, probably Jeff Burton behind the wheel now. Yes, it is, in 16th place. So they're last on the racetrack, about to go a lap down. They don't want to be last. They don't want to be a lap down, Kevin, so they're probably going to fight this just a little bit.
Yeah, but I think they're going to also kind of pay attention that there's a battle coming and hopefully get out of the way just like that.
Oh, really? Maybe not. Well, they got one bird with two stones that time. They both passed him, and he's through.
Yeah, I think that probably didn't impact the leaders much, other than a lot of kind of heart in throat moment there. But in the end, I think a lot of times the back marker cars, they still realize that the race that's coming isn't really theirs, and they don't want to impact it.
So we'll fall back in line behind the other two Lamborghinis that lead the way. And being teammates, this has come up a lot in the past, even within the DXDT Racing camp. You've got two teammates on the racetrack. They're leading the race. The only real goal is to not lose the position that you're in and not crash into each other. And I wonder how much of that comes into play with 7 minutes to go. You've got a pretty healthy lead. Don't step over that line, right?
I think it's a situation where you race as hard as you can, but do not contact each other. There should be no contact between the cars. Because the last thing that you want to do is be responsible for taking not only your car out, but your teammate's car out and having to explain that one to the team owner or otherwise. And in these cases, these are pro drivers that they only get the call back to come back and drive the car again if they do a good job. And scrapping, 100, or in this case, probably $1.5 million worth of equipment probably is not the way to do that.
Probably not. And we've got a battle for 4th here overall. George Kurtz, Michael Dinan. Again, this is not for class position, so even if Kurtz loses this position, will still be leading in the Pro-Am category and ready for a trophy later this afternoon. 6 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Might be able to hold on, but CG, you were saying earlier not to fight Michael Dinan. Is that changed now, or are you just not worried about it?
No, I think in George's case is keep your head down, run your lap time. Don't pay attention to the mirror. When he gets to your bumper, don't make it too hard on him such that you both slow down to do it. Let him by and let him go to his race, and you continue to run yours. I'm sure the crew, their race engineer is on the radio, keeping George aware of the situation, and you don't want to get into a battle that you don't need to. It'd be nice to try to be there. I think if George maybe was in 3rd overall, he'd like to have that overall thing, but given that it's 4th and that Dinan looks to be about a half a second a lap faster, let him go.
Going back to the crew, of course, Kevin, you've got some folks from Operation Motorsport with you this weekend. Tell me a little bit about Operation Motorsport, who they are, what they do, and how they're helping you this weekend.
Well, I mean, Operation Motorsport is a kind of a military foundation where they're helping some members that are leaving the military either kind of on their own through retirement or maybe even through some medical discharge, and it's giving these guys a little bit of an opportunity to get immersed into the motorsport environment by placing them on board with teams. And fortunately for this event and for the whole season, I have 2 of these members, and what we try to do is I try to kind of share some of the responsibilities of all the little tasks that have to go on behind the scenes to kind of make this racing happen. And some of that goes down to kind of being in charge of the fueling of the car and managing the tire prep and really helping keep the car in tip-top shape so that we can go out on track and be as competitive as possible.
Really cool. Of course, Operation Motorsport also has a racing league that uses iRacing, and that's we also had Operation Motorsport's members join us in the CrowdStrike Virtual Racing League in Assetto Corsa Competizione. Jason Leach participates in that. We've had him on the broadcast back in Indianapolis and a couple other times, so good to have Jason in the community as well, and thanks for their support. Of course, helping you get to victory lane again this weekend. 4 minutes and 30 seconds to go, and Kurt's keeping Dinan behind him. CJ doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he's maintaining a good pace, and Dinan isn't closing the gap as rapidly. I think that George may be a little bit more competitive than I'd given him credit for, and he may want to keep that spot.
Yeah,
but at the same time, you may actually see some of the tire fall off or otherwise. And also in Dinan's case, he's not. If he gets by George, all well and good, but he's not gonna make it up to Venturini or Ward or Pepper.
So no update that I have on Michael Cooper and the 3rd DXDT racing car. They're in pit lane. Not exactly sure what happened there, but again, leaving the pit box could have been a tire issue or some other mechanical problem as they left the pit box, but that car will not finish today's race, unfortunately, and you don't finish all of them.
So a little bit of backstory in that car is it did have a new transmission put in it overnight, and I wonder if by chance there may have been complications. When leaving a pit box, you actually, you go to the ground after changing the tires, rev the car up and launch it out of there, and potentially they found a weak spot. I'm just speculating completely. Who knows what it could be. Given where they were on the track in pit lane, it does look like they got away from the pit box and were moving, but under how much steam, I don't know. So there was obviously something, given that they're not here, rather catastrophic, at least to the race.
Yeah. And these transmissions are not your normal H-pattern gearboxes that are a couple $100 on eBay, CJ, either. They're very complex, pneumatically operated, very complex electronic gearboxes that have 6 gears and a whole bunch of other stuff inside them that make them tick.
Yeah, absolutely. No shifter on the floor of these. You're using the paddle shifter on the steering wheel. As you said, electro hydraulic engagement with solenoids and the like. So there's a lot of pieces that can go wrong. It ran very well for Michael Cooper for the first half of the race, and it may be the problem. I haven't been able to get an update from the team. I have a feeling they're probably still working on it. Probably just to get it back into the paddock and everything.
So with 2 minutes and 5 seconds left, the next time we see the leader cross the stripe, that will be the white flag lap. We don't know exactly where the leader is. I think there's a little farther up the road than these guys right now. This is, again, watching the battle. This is the Pro-Am leader again. It's George Kurtz. Well, that's not the Pro-Am leader. That's the fifth place car overall, or fifth or sixth place car. That's Michael Dinan. But George Kurtz leads the Pro-Am lineup right now, and they're going to come through what I think should be their white flag lap. Maybe one more, Kevin.
Yeah, it really depends on where the overall leader was when it crossed under around 2 minutes and 8 seconds. That's about the fastest lap of the race. So if it was kind of under that time, then it should be the final lap, and we see the graphic now.
Yeah, so final lap now for the race leader, which again is Jordan Pepper in the K-Pax Racing Lamborghini Huracan, and Giovanni Venturini not too far back, 3 car lengths. And we saw in the Porsche Carrera Cup race this morning, it came down to the wire, the last 2 corners, there was a pass for the lead, and it's not over till it's over. I never call it until you cross the stripe, because things can go wrong or right very quickly depending on who you are and where you are. But for George Kurtz, all he's got to do is finish out the lap, take the win in Pro-Am. For the lead, though, we're going to watch it all the way to the end, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think the gap hasn't really changed a lot in the last 3 or 4 laps, so I have a feeling this is the way they're going to finish. And probably there's no team orders here, but there is a lot of inter-team respect. And here we go.
Well,
I was very wrong.
Commentator's curse.
Yep, here we go. Venturini for the race lead into turn 12, takes it away from Jordan Pepper. Pepper crosses him over at the exit of 12, now into 13 on driver's left. And this is going to be an all-out brawl. They've got plenty of space behind him to Russell Ward, so as long as they don't touch rubber spin, they're good to the end here. Venturini's wide. Pepper going to set him up for the exit of 15 now, crossing him up and on the brakes. Right to the rear tailpipes. That was a crucial corner. And now 3 left. The carousel, turn 19 and turn 20. But Giovanni Venturini, the number 6 K-Pax Racing Lamborghini, stealing it away from Jordan Pepper down in turn 12. And that might have been it, unless Pepper can respond in the last 2 corners. Through turn 19 now, 1 more left. Here's the run towards turn number 20 on the brakes. And Giovanni Venturini, the K-Pax Racing Lamborghini, to the stripe, checkered flag waving, and it's a K-Pax 1-2, but opposite the way we thought. That's why you never call it till it's over, Kevin.
That's right. I was way wrong.
I think they had team orders all the way up until the last lap, and then I think they chose to go for it.
Yeah, they turned him loose, I think, there at the end with Russell Ward. 3rd place, he will be the last driver on the podium. George Kurtz, 4th place overall and winner in the Pro-Am category. Strong run for the 0-4. Congratulations to George Kurtz from CrowdStrike and Colin Brown, who did a heck of a job there in the early stint. Michael Dinan, 5th place overall. David Askew rebounds for a 9th, I believe, in the number 63 after the spin. Not a bad result, I would say, all things considered, and I'd give him that, top 10.
Yeah, that's right. Anytime you can come away with a top 10, and definitely for George, kind of pulling off a 8th. Well, that's even better.
Got by a Harward in the number 88 Lamborghini on the final lap, and that gave David Askew 8th place. So all things said and done, 90 minutes out of the way, and man, it's good to have a full field of GT3 cars. 16 out there. The last time we were here, we had 7 or 8 or something like that, so double the field, guys. That was a lot of fun.
That was a great time. I love to see all the battles, especially that we got to see basically an amateur shootout there at the end, and even better that we got to see George rise to the top as I figured he would.
And still another race later today for George Kurtz and for you, CJ. You've got GT America coming up later this afternoon. Best of luck to you. Kevin, you're done. You won races, and now you just got to pack up and get out of here, so congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a great weekend for CrowdStrike and AWS all together. So yeah, good luck to CJ at his race this afternoon, and hopefully we can bring home some more hardware.
All right, well, thanks to everybody for watching here for CrowdStrike Racing's coverage of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Roll a couple videos here, but there's the replay of the finish. What a battle between the 2 K-Pax Racing Lamborghinis. We'll see you next time. Make sure you're subscribed to the CrowdStrike Racing YouTube channel for virtual racing. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll be back with you at the next one for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. I'm Kyle Heyer with CJ Moses and Kevin Boehm. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Soldiers, sailors, airmen, and women enlist in the armed forces for many reasons, including a sense of duty, patriotism, the adventure, travel, and adrenaline. When service members are injured or wounded and can no longer perform their military duties, they quickly find themselves removed from their team, no longer serving the purpose for which they trained.
I came back from Afghanistan in 2013, and it was kind of a trial and error of finding out, after the military, what's next in life.
Motorsports offers an opportunity to regain that sense of identity within a safe, fast-paced team environment, providing a renewed sense of purpose. Like in the military, in motorsports the goal is in accomplishing the mission, winning as a team, collectively celebrating the successes and supporting teammates through the losses. Operation Motorsport also offers virtual engagements and recovery opportunities through an iRacing league, engaging beneficiaries in a safe, competitive environment from the comfort and safety of their home. Operation Motorsport believes in the power of team, identity, and purpose.
Black and orange Ferrari. And green flag flies, we're racing. The Acura gets a great start from behind. 3 wide up the inside. Closing in on him here through turn number 2. Big slide on corner entry.
Here's, that's a big aggressive dive up the inside there from the Lamborghini. Some bragging rights here, I think, between the two. Look at that slide up ahead from Simpson. That thing was totally sideways, but he was able to catch it.
Lead. Fantastic stuff here in the M Cup. Big chop by the 777 car off the nose of that. You saw the corner, didn't have overlap, it went right to the apex. Checkered flag, and Adam Youngblood will win the AM race in the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League and pick up a checkered flag, a wet one here.